Hey, it's Ed here. Welcome to another episode of Let's Play with iOS Music Apps. Today we're going to be looking at KQ Voice plugins. You can see it here in the App Store. It's a set of audio effects, including some plugins that you can use. As you can see here, there's several things built into it, a pitch shifter, a talk box, a couple things. Now, what I'm going to focus on in this video, however, is a couple cool utilities called the KQ plugins, these Loopback plugins. And there's been several videos made about using these, primarily with Logic Pro, using it to get IA into and out of Logic Pro, because that's not possible otherwise, as far as I know. There's an excellent video on doing that on How To App by Jade Star on that YouTube channel. And the developer also has a very short video on using it. And I think there might be a couple more out there, but I highly recommend, if you really want to see this app in action and understand how it works with Logic Pro, go watch that video. What I'm going to focus on here, however, is specifically how I use it with AUM and GarageBand. So what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to break it into chapters. I'm going to start at level 1, the most basic, and go up to level 4, which is more advanced. I mean, it's not going to be super advanced. I'm not doing anything super fancy here, but advanced for me, right? So you'll see how that works. Anyway, I think it should be interesting for a lot of people that use GarageBand and want to do things with AUM. And this may also work with other things like Cubasis and Beatmaker 3 or other things that support AUV3 plugins. I haven't tried those, but it's certainly worth checking out. Maybe somebody else will do that video. But I'm going to show you how I use it with GarageBand and AUM to get MIDI in and out, and different ways I do that. So I hope it's helpful. If you think it might be, please stay with me and we'll give you a look. So let's pop in here first to the outline. I want to show you quickly an overview of what we're going to cover. So I got it broken down here. Level 1 here, what you see 1 and 2. These are things that you can already do natively. You don't require the app to do that. Getting audio from AUM to GarageBand, MIDI from AUM into GarageBand, you can do that straight in, no app required. Level 2, that's where I'm going to show getting audio from GarageBand into AUM and MIDI into AUM. And then level 3, we're going to mix it up. We're going to do multiple audio tracks from AUM to GarageBand and GarageBand into AUM and mix things up quite a bit. Level 4, hopefully we'll get there. We're going to cover using this plugin to trigger the transport of AUM. So basically, put a track in GarageBand that's going to then trigger the transport in AUM, possibly to be used for a type of synchronization. So you can basically sync them up to start. I think there might be other ways to do that, maybe with Audio Bus or something like that. But this way seems like, one way that might work for me. So it might work for you. Anyway, let's jump right in. So there should be chapters in this when this is published. So if you want to skip past level 1 and go straight to level 2, feel free. But for people that maybe aren't familiar with getting audio and MIDI back and forth from GarageBand to AUM, feel free to watch that part. And I'll go through it as quickly as I can so we can get on to the really interesting stuff. So let me start out here with GarageBand. Let's just create a new song. And we're going to add inter-app audio. That's how we're going to do it with AUM. We're going to say AUM port 1 here. We're going to tap this upper left right there. Add opens AUM. I had already had it open, probably would have opened. But anyway, let's add an instrument, an audio instrument. And let's pick play beat because it'll generate some audio fairly easily without too much difficulty. Let's just add a track here. So let's see what this sounds like. I'm going to turn that up a little bit, I think. There we go. All right. So there's some audio playing. Now, let's go to GarageBand. Let me spin this back up. Okay. Let that run. Go to GarageBand. And I forgot one thing, which is I need to send the output to the IAA port down here. There we go. Right there. Now, we go back to GarageBand. There it is. So don't forget that piece. You need to send the output to IAA in AUM, if you might already know that. Anyway, there it is. Let's hit record. And it's recording. Let's just do a couple bars, and then you can see right here. There's your audio. All right. Now, let's keep that for the moment. And now we're going to do MIDI from AUM into the GarageBand. So we're going to pop back here. We're going to add a MIDI track, MIDI processor. We're going to use something like UDA. Okay, so let's just open one of these presets, right? There we go, right there. Okay, now here we're going to set a destination for the output of AUM source right here. That's our destination. Now, don't worry about play beat. I'll just move that out of the way. We're going to get rid of the audio track. But first, I want to add, so we're going to add in a keyboard track. You gotta put in a MIDI track of a keyboard type so that it can read it. You can't add a string or something like that. So here you go. Let's just record on that. All right. And there you go. Now I can go over here and pop that out. Go back to GarageBand. We can actually get rid of this now. That was just from before. I didn't want to erase it. And come on, GarageBand. Get out of there. There it goes. Come on. All right, now. So there's your MIDI in GarageBand right there. Let's get rid of that and clear that out. So we've covered 1 and 2. Let's move on to level 2. And this is where it gets interesting. This is where that plugin, and stay with me, this plugin is not that hard to use if you understand what the labels mean. Loop back in, loop back out. And I'm going to explain all that stuff. And you should be able to rewind the video if you need to go back to certain parts, if you need to cover it again. But I'm going to try to repeat things here and there so that, you don't have to jump back to find something again and then not find it the rest of the video. So let's go ahead. So first on the docket is GarageBand audio to AUM. So we're going to go into GarageBand. Going to go create a new song. And we'll just say keyboard here. And I'm actually going to use a loop, like maybe 70s electric piano here. So this is just, we don't really need this. I just wanted to get that loop in there. All right, so here's a loop. Now, we've got a loop of audio in GarageBand, and we got AUM. Let me just clear this here. Start all over. Okay, so we're starting brand new in AUM. Now, we want to get some audio into AUM. So the way we're going to do that is we need to have this loop back, which is going to be the bridge. So it's got two components, the sending and the receiving. So just for ease of understanding, I'm going to add the sending part right here. So we go to plugins. It's added as an effect. We go into edit. We're going to add an effect and add the output where if you want it to be after all the effects, make sure you add it in the stack below the other items. Otherwise, it's not going to pick up the full effect. So I'm just going to add it right here. Go to audio unit extensions, and I'm going to go to loopback 1 in. And if we just open that real quick, what you'll see here is it has this thing called port. It's got a setting on the left here, latency offset, and it's got this little mute button. We're not going to look at all that at the moment. Some of that will come into play later. What's important is this is it says loopback 1 in. What that means is the audio is going to come out of GarageBand into the effects stack, right? So think of it going upwards, coming out of the track, upwards into the effects stack. Loopback 1 now is going to intercept that audio. And that little arrow that you see there means that's coming out, and where it's going to go is into loopback right here. Loopback 1 out. So it may not make a whole lot of sense. You know, the in is going to be sending, the out is going to be receiving. Maybe that makes sense to other people. The name doesn't make sense to me, but that's the way it works. So it's going to go out of here into AUM. So GarageBand, loop back in, transfers over the ether inside the iPad, comes out here into AUM. I hope I didn't say GarageBand. Hopefully not. Anyway, if I did, forgive me. So now we've got this set up. So now, theoretically, if we hit play in here, let me turn off the metronome. Play. Is that still playing? It's still going, yeah. All right. I think I got to unmute that. Let me see here. So you can hear it. I'm definitely controlling this audio in AUM. So it really is coming in. You can see the little activity down there. Now here's one thing. I'm gonna go over this. I might use this later. There's this little button. Let me stop that for a second. All right. So there is this little button here. There's two buttons: latency offset, which I haven't used it much yet, but I think it's used for adjusting latency when you've got multiple inputs and tracks and you want to try to line things up. I don't know. We'll see maybe later how it works on another video, but this stability one can be important. What's going to happen is if you notice distortion in your track when you're bringing that audio in, pushing the stability up should take care of it. I had a couple tracks where the audio was pretty intense and had a lot of peaks, and I had to turn that stability up. I'm going to leave it down for the moment because I think it's fine. Later on, we'll see. We might have to adjust it. For this instance, it looks pretty good. So here we go. We have now checked off item 3. Next is GarageBand MIDI to AUM. So let's go to GarageBand. And we're just going to leave that for the moment. We'll clean it up. So what we're going to do here is going to add a MIDI track. Okay. And now we're going to get rid of this guy here for the moment. We're going to add a MIDI loop. There we go. How about this one? All right. All right. Now it's picking up that audio. So let me get this out of there. This is going to work a little differently. Now the MIDI, here what's going to happen is this MIDI is actually going to have to be transferred in order for it to get into AUM. So what we're going to do is, I just put this keyboard here to get this MIDI onto the track list here. What we're going to do here is we're going to use also the AUV3. This time, instead of adding effect, we're going to add an AUV3 instrument. And I'm also going to do something slightly different. We're going to do this later in the video too to keep things clean. I'm going to use Loopback 1 for audio, and I'm going to use Loopback 2 for MIDI. I'm not sure if we're going to use Loopback 3 or 4. Probably not. But that'll just make it easier to keep track of what's what, because you get pretty cluttered when you got multiple tracks, which is what we're going to be working with later. So I'm going to add Loopback 2 out. So, and you can see here there's a port on here, same settings as the audio one. And now I could record some MIDI in here myself with the keyboard, but it's a lot easier to just swing that right down there I was actually trying to delete that. Let me get rid of that. Okay, so now let's just pretend this is like a, MIDI. We could record it in with an external keyboard. We could type it in on the fly. This could be done live. For demonstrations purposes, I'm just using this MIDI loop so that you can see how it works. But you can put anything in there that you want, anytime, live, whatever. So now we've got our Loopback 2. And again, Loopback 2 out. And over here, we're going to add an effect. So it's sort of a flip-flop there in some ways. And again, we're going to use Loopback 2 in. This is our MIDI. Now up here, it's going to be a little strange. So it's going to go on the effects slot. This is going to be receiving the MIDI. However, up here, we need to have something to play that MIDI. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into this instrument and we're going to select Loopback 2, which we know is for MIDI in this case. And electric vintage piano is going to play that MIDI, hopefully, if I've got everything set up right here. I think I got it right. Let's find out. All right, let's hit play on this. And voila, there it goes. And this is where you can adjust one of these settings here. I can go in here and I can adjust the stability for this MIDI instrument. If I feel like it's a little distorted, that could make a difference. So just be aware of that. All right, let's stop that. All right, so we successfully achieved item number 4. Let's keep going. So far, so good. All right, level 3, AUM to GarageBand, multiple audio tracks. So I think what I'm going to do here is actually combine 5 and 6 together to save time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little shortcut here. I'm going to cheat. I love cheating if it achieves the result. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to create a brand new GarageBand track. However, we're going to do a live loop. And we're going to pick chill. And I'll explain in a minute why I'm going to do that. So what I want to do is I want to be working with multiple audio instruments. Now, I could have had a pre-created track of my own, but I'm going to cheat and use GarageBand because everything sounds great, and I'd have to put a whole bunch of stuff that sounds good together. So let's just do this. So let's just record a few bars here. All right, now we have a few bars here, and let's see, we're going to start here. All right, we'll start here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you KQ plugins in action for both audio and MIDI at the same time. So again, we're going to do basically what we did before. We're going to go down here, we're going to add a track, we're going to say audio unit, and this will be for our MIDI. So as before, I'm going to use Loopback 2 right here. And I'm going to just move this MIDI down into that slot. So now instead of playing that piano, I could have copied it. I could have done that too. I could have just gone here and left that there. So that's going to be our MIDI. So what we're going to try to attempt is stream multiple things at once and see how it handles it. So let's see, we got our piano output down here. That's our MIDI. And what do we got? Some beats. All right, let's go into beats up here. Add the effect. And here you're going to see some use of the ports. I'm going to use Loopback 1 2 times for 2 different audio instruments, but we're going to choose different ports. You'll see how these ports work inside of the plugins. It allows you to, even though there's 4 possible instances, each one has, I think it has 16 ports, so that means you could put a lot of these through. I don't know how many it handles. I imagine, probably not that many. even on an iPad Pro. But let's add it. So let's go here, add the loop back, and this is audio. So we're going to use Loopback 1, and we're going to make careful note here, port 1. So this is our first instance. So our beats are going to be on port 1, and we already have a drum machine. We're going to skip that. Let's try adding some skilled chords to the audio. So let's go here, add another instance of Loopback 1 in, and here we go. And this time, I'm going to choose port 2. So, all right. So now what we're going to be able to do with that is we're going to have now audio input here. Let me just mute the ones that we're not using so you can see what we're dealing with. It'll be easier to track. So we got 3 entries here. I think we're just going to stick with that for the moment, right? I think that's probably good enough. And so we've got a MIDI. This is already set, actually, so we're good on the MIDI part from before, but we need to add 2 more audio items. So let's go to Loopback 1. Okay, this one's port 1, all by default, so we're all good there. Let's add audio here. Loop back 1 out again. We're going to choose port 2 for our second audio track, and hopefully it's going to be receiving. Let me think if I got everything correct here. I think so. Let's find out. Let's see what happens. It can get tricky with this many tracks. Let's see what happens. Yeah, you notice that I did not want to do that. All right, notice that that distorted sound. That's actually expected with these chill chords. It's actually how they sound. It's not distortion. It threw me before the last time I did a video. I thought I screwed it up, but it was fine. They actually sound that way normally. I had to redo the whole thing. Anyway. Let's go over here. I think I can mute these. Yeah. Now if we go back, you'll actually see that these are being controlled. Here's something else. Notice the volume controls, the level controls. See, they're working here. However, for this, we need to change this to post fader to change the level on this MIDI instrument. That's one little thing you have to know about. So if you do follow the procedure I showed you and you want to control the output, let's turn that down a little bit. You have to have it post fader for it to control the levels of that. I don't know exactly why, but that's the way it works. So there we go. We have achieved, that was level 3, 5, and 6. I'm going to count both. Hopefully you'll buy that. I could have done several more tracks, but I think you see the functionality. Now let's see if we can do level 4. This should be interesting. Let's go for it. Go for broke. All right. Now I'm going to try, let's see. Let me save this. It's just going to be called My Song. Okay. So I actually, to save time here, I pre-created this. Now, if you look here, let's just edit this real quick. If you see here, I got a note on C4 right here, which was MIDI note number 60 or 72, depending on which system you adhere to. It seems like it can vary. Anyway, what I'm going to do is take this. I'm going to copy this track right here. I'm going to go down here, load it up. There we go. And I'm just going to add any old keyboard instrument. Doesn't really matter which one I do. Any keyboard MIDI instrument. Let me rewind it because that's going to be important. So we need that note to be at the very beginning right? Because what we want to do is trigger AUM transport so that, for example, I had this project in GarageBand. I've got other instruments in AUM. I want to sync them up, right? So I want them to start playing at the same time. Or maybe I've got a recording in AUM, for example, and I want to kind of mix things up and use these things in tandem, which is what I'm hoping to do with this app. This is a way to do it. Now, I did do this before successfully, but not in this particular project. I'm going to do it from scratch. I do know it works. I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that I can pull it off. So for those of you that are familiar with AUM MIDI control, you'll probably be able to follow this. For others, you might need to do a little research about AUM MIDI controls and how they work and so forth, and using MIDI to control it. But anyway, you go to MIDI control, and this is where you can control AUM's behavior. And the transport's up at the very top right here. I'm going to go to parameters, and I'm going to start play right here. I'm going to select channel 1, and I'm going to select note C572. Like I said, it says C4 in my GarageBand track, but what I found is that I have to use C5 in order for it to work correctly. Maybe somebody knows why that is. The other thing I have to do, and maybe this isn't necessary, but the only way I found this works is I have to add a MIDI. Let me put this in here. I've got to add another instance of Loopback because I need to, this is going to be Loopback 3. This is going to be a MIDI, just like we have on the left side that we're using to play the electric piano. I need a MIDI input for that track that's going to do the control. And for clarity, I'm going to put it on Loopback 3 just to keep things simple. I could probably have another port on Loopback 2. I'm not sure, but that's how we're going to do it. And so what I've got to do now over in GarageBand is I'm going to change this. I'm going to add Loopback 3. So I'm going to go to Audio and Extensions. I'm going to do Loopback 3 out right there. Okay. And again, I'm going to take this track. I'm going to slide it down. Now I can get rid of that guy right there. Rewind. Now, what should happen is that Loopback 3, that MIDI should be received over here in AUM on this MIDI input. It's actually an effect slot. And I got to do one more thing. And this is where it gets a little weird. I'm going to use MIDI processor. And this may not be the way the developer intended it to be used, but it appears to be the only way I can get it to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm adding this MIDI Loopback 3. It's an actual separate instance. You can see here, it says Loopback 3 MIDI, right? This one says Loopback 3 in. Slightly different. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to take this Loopback 3 MIDI. I'm going to use the input from Loopback 3 in. So basically, this guy right here is going to be sending its MIDI over here. And I'm going to do it on channel 1 because that's what I specified in AUM. And I'm going to cross my fingers and hope this works. So if this works, what's going to happen is this transport will kick off when that note comes through. Let's try it and see. Going for broke. And it didn't. All right, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? I did something wrong here. Channel 1, note C572. Port 1, channel 1. It should be working. Let me go back here and see. We got Loopback 3 out, right? Let me just take a look at the at this audio unit real quick here. Let's see if this is set correctly. Port 1, loopback 3 out. Yep, that's fine. Not sure why this isn't working. Let's see. Edits. Let's try putting a note on C3 and a note on C5 in case it flipped around on me. Maybe something flipped around on me. Let's find out. All right, here we go. MIDI inputs, back 3. Yep. And let's just add an instrument up here. I don't know, maybe it's flipping out because of that. Parameters. Ah, I know what I forgot. I forgot to turn on the transport. It shows you how much I know. I need to route, see this MIDI control on the upper right there, at the upper right? That's what I left out right here. This Loopback 3 MIDI needs to send to the AUM MIDI control. Man, I'm such an AUM noob. All right, let's try this again. Here we go. I hope you're having fun, because I'm not. Let's try this again. Hey, there it is. Got it. I failed, but I made it. At the very end, I bailed it out. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this was fun and interesting, and I hope my mistakes also were helpful as well. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching.